It's time to get inside the Giants Huddle.
Let's go.
On Giants.com.
I like it.
And the Giants mobile app.
Boom, give me some juice.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's roll.
Welcome to another edition of the Giants Huddle Podcast, brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants. John Schmeelk with you, joined by friend of the program, Dane Brugler, author of The Beast, the best draft guide in the land, which you can find on The Athletic with your subscription for free. Dane, we've been doing this a long time, my friend. We're about a week away from the draft. How you feeling, man? Like, is all your hay in the barn at this point? Is your 7-round mock even done?
I finished it this morning. That'll be up this week on The Athletic, so people can go check that out. It's you never feel like you're quite done until draft weekend is here, until it's like time to draft, because there's always another tape you can watch. There's always another under the radar player you can go watch more of. But yeah, at some point you just have to, all right, we've been doing this for the last year. We've seen a lot of these guys. Let's trust our rankings, trust what we've seen. And you know, we can feel good about it, about, you know, what our opinions on these guys. So yeah, I'm more than excited for draft weekend to be here so we can react to the picks as opposed to, the opposite. But yeah, it's a fun draft class because, again, it's guys at the top. It's a strong group at the top where, I don't know how many actual blue chippers we have, but it's a good first round. It's a good year to have a top 10 pick. It's a good year to have multiple first round picks. The depth in this draft kind of falls off, I don't know, 4th round, 5th round, somewhere that depth does fall off. So it's a good year to have early picks, which makes it a lot of fun to talk about.
Yeah. And a good year for the Giants to have an early pick. And by the way, Dane and Robert Mays and Nate Tice, all of which you've heard on our program, will be live doing coverage of the draft on Thursday and Friday through the Athletic. So make sure you tune in and check that out. We're only allowed to be on through NFL rules for like a half an hour each night. So when we're not on, watch us and then tune right back into their coverage, which is always the best.
Perfect.
And I always joke, Dane, that we've been doing this a long time. Unfortunately, my printer here has not had a chance to print out this year's guide, but I went back into the archives. 2015, Leonard Williams. I think that was the first year we had you on. That's when I think you were still with NFL Draft Scout and the Sports Exchange.
Yeah.
So really, you were one of the first draft guys we've had on, and you've kind of motivated us to up our coverage. I do a lot more work on it, probably because of you. So I just want to thank you for doing this for all these years. And I got Leonard Williams here. I brought out all of them, dude. 2016, Laramie Tunsil.
That's great.
We got Myles Garrett, 2017, and I got him all the way through 2023. We just haven't had a chance to print that this year's yet, but awesome work as always.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic. No, I've been doing this long enough where it's, been growing over the years and hopefully getting better and better. But that's a good representation of our friendship and our professional relationship of talking about players and debating all these guys, and we're almost a decade here. That's crazy.
It is. It's nuts. And you do a great job with The Beast. For the folks that haven't checked it out, make sure you do. Before we get into the actual prospects, Dane, this is a little vague, so you can take it any direction you want. Give me some of your favorite either background stories or anecdotes that you got into The Beast this year. It could be about a 7th round player. I don't care. Just some of the cool, really background stuff that you've been able to pull out on a couple guys that gives fans an idea of how deep you really do dig on all these guys.
I think the best or the most inspirational story has to be Ray Davis from Kentucky, the running back who, everything that life threw at him from a young age. No one would have blamed him if he, succumbed to the pressure and, if one of 14 siblings, but his parents were in the picture, in and out of jail. I mean, he was in the foster care system. He was dealt a rough hand, but he overcame it all, and he led 3 different teams in rushing over his career in college. He started at Temple, then he was at Vanderbilt, then he finished at Kentucky. And the tape that he put on, the performance he put on tape this past year in 2023 was outstanding. And the coaches, they speak really highly of him. It's funny, when I've talked to him, he always mentions his offensive lineman first instead of him. This is just a guy that gets it, but he also has the traits and the physical ability. Now he's an older guy that'll work against him a little bit. He'll be, he'll turn 25 during his rookie season. But when you're talking about a 3rd, 4th round type of running back, I don't know how much that age is going to matter for a lot of teams. So Ray Davis is one of the more inspirational stories in this class. He's fantastic. So, and I always love we have a lot of father son, NFL bloodlines in this class. Frank Gore Jr., obviously Marvin Harrison Jr., Jerry Rice, his son is in this class. The McCaffreys are again represented in the NFL draft, so that's always fun. Learn about some of the bloodlines and different. Ed Reed is connected to a few guys. Trey Taylor, the Air Force safety, he's a cousin. I mean, there's a lot of different bloodline connections, and it's always interesting to find those out with these prospects.
Kingsley Suamataia, cousin of Penei Sewell. Like there's a lot of guys. And it's funny, all the guys that we watch growing up now are starting to have kids that are going into the draft. That makes me feel extremely old. It's not great. Brandon Jacobs, who I was here, I was here when he played the Super Bowl. His kid is like the #1 prospect coming out. It's crazy.
Is he a running back?
No, offensive tackle.
Oh my gosh, that's not too crazy when you think of Jacobs and how big he was. But wow, that is crazy.
Yeah, let me see if I can get that up here real quick. Because I know he was highly recruited. Yeah, Brandon Jacobs. He just committed to Clemson. Braden Jacobs. Okay. He's 6'7", 310 pounds already.
Jeez, wow.
So
keep an eye
on him, bro.
Jacobs. I mean, at his biggest was probably 250, 260. I mean, he was a big boy. And so I guess not a complete stretch that if his son with that size, if he's 6'7", then that's good for him. Good for his family.
Yeah. Brandon Jacobs on the top of my list of guys you don't want to be stuck in a dark alley against. He's scary dude. Him and Sean Rogers, who's here for a couple years, two of the guys that have that nastiness to him. You don't want to mess with those two guys. You definitely want them.
They have the intimidation factor. Sure.
Absolutely. All right. You mentioned Ray Davis, and then I'll get into that in a second. Because it's funny. When I did all the running backs a few weeks ago, and I tried to watch them all consecutively. I actually liked his tape the best, Dane, believe it or not. But then you look at the numbers and the measurements, the age of your point, I eventually slid him down the board. But I just think if you're going to pick a guy that's going to be a good, solid running back that can do a little bit of everything, even if, the speed's not overwhelming, nothing really jumps out at you in terms of the testing, I don't think you can go wrong with a guy like that. And if you're only going to have a running back for one contract anyway, I think you'll probably last through that one deal at least.
Yeah, and that's the key is we can get caught up with the age and 21 sounds better than 25, and I get it, but we're talking about probably a player that be drafted in the 4th round. And when you're talking about a day 3 running back, give me good players as opposed to worrying about what's that second contract going to look like, and what's it going to look like 5 years. Most GMs aren't going to see 4 or 5 years from now. So let's get the better player for right now. And you could make an argument that Ray Davis Florida tape was maybe the best running back tape of any running back in this class. You could make that argument. He was outstanding. One of the few running backs that was outstanding against Georgia this year. He runs with it's equal parts patience and instincts, but also an urgency where, once he sees that hole, he senses it, he hits it, he goes, he can put his foot in the ground, make sharp lateral moves, make a safety miss in space. To your point, doesn't really have that pull away gear, more of a 4-5 athlete than a 4-4 athlete. But just the fact that he's ripping off these singles and doubles where he's getting 6 yards, 12 yards, even if there's not a ton of 80-yarders, he's still getting these positive gains. And I was really encouraged by what he did catching the ball, even though he wasn't a high volume pass catcher, but I was encouraged by the way he caught it. I think he's more than just a screen receiver. But yeah, when you factor in his background and everything he's overcome, with a lot of these players, you always want to figure out, have they had to handle adversity? And because when you get to the NFL, it's full of adversity. And so do you have the mindset to overcome that, the mental toughness? There's no question about this kid's mental toughness and his ability to work past some of the roadblocks. So yeah, Ray Davis, to me, easy sell. And I think somewhere in that, probably the 4th round is where he's going to come off the board.
All right, let's talk intel here, Dane. Is your thought still quarterbacks 1 through 3, with the 3rd one being Drake May, and then just it's all hands on deck for teams trying to trade up with Arizona and the Chargers. What's your feel for how these first 5 picks are going to go?
I feel good about the first pick. Put it that way. Caleb Williams is going to be a Chicago Bear. I feel very confident about that. After that, it really is because let's remember the word consensus should never be used in any draft conversation. Get it out of here because every team looks at these guys a little bit differently. Some think JJ McCarthy is the number 2 quarterback in his class. Jaden Daniels, Drake May. I mean, there's a different order from team to team. And especially when you look at the Commanders at number 2, you have a very hands-on owner who will be part of the conversation about who the pick is at number 2. You have a first-year general manager. You have a head coach who is a defensive-minded head coach. So he brings a different perspective to the conversation. He's looking at it through the realm of, okay, who do I not want to prepare for? Who is the guy that I don't want to see on the other side that my defense has to stop? And so the Commanders are really interesting with who they might draft at number 2. I think all signs are pointing to Jaden Daniels, but that's until the pick is official. I'm still not feeling super great about that. And then the Patriots at number 3, what direction do they go? You have, an offense last year that was just god awful. And Robert Kraft, 82 years old, he does not want to see an offense like that again. He can't do it. So I think quarterback, it seems to be the favorite at number 3, but which quarterback? They've had all Jaden Daniels, JJ McCarthy, Drake May, they've had them all in. They've spent a few days there just learning the player, and who knows how those interviews go. That's the thing. JJ McCarthy has an outstanding interview, which is very possible. The intangibles, and I've said since the summer, once coaches get with JJ McCarthy and learn about him as the person, and this is nothing against Jaden Daniels or Drake May, because I think all these guys, not worried about the character at all. I think they'll all do very well in an interview setting. But JJ has a chance to really separate himself because the intangibles are that good. So if JJ McCarthy were to be that number 3 pick, I don't think that'd be super surprising. So I am very interested to see how these quarterbacks come off the board. Could be chalk, how we kind of Jaden Daniels 2, Drake May 3, and then JJ McCarthy. We'll have to wait and see. We have a team trading up. How does that play out? But I do think it is really fascinating because beauty's in the eye of the beholder, and it is never more true than with quarterbacks because it's not just about the player that you see on tape. It's also about the person. This is a CEO of your franchise, and you have to be won over by the person to invest a top 5 pick into the player. So I'm really fascinated to see how this plays out.
You love turf. You're good at it. So you start a turf biz. Business grows, your savings grow. Become the most celebrated name in turf. Are you ready for all that life brings?
And then how about Arizona and LA? Do you think both are looking to get out? Do you think they already basically have offers on the table from Minnesota, Denver, any other team that might be looking to move up to one of those 2 spots to get that quarterback, if that 4th quarterback is a player that those 2 teams value?
There's no doubt that this is the time of the year when, even before this, where those deals are talked about with teams, and maybe not all the specifics, but you start to talk, you do the legwork about, okay, what would you be looking to get? You have your negotiating points, and then that's where you start, and then you work it down and see if you can come to an agreement. And a lot of deals, there's a far more deals that are talked about between teams that aren't done compared to the ones that are actually executed. But especially if you're the Vikings, if you're the Raiders, the Broncos, you're at least seeing, okay, what would it cost us? You're doing your due diligence. So even if a trade doesn't happen, okay, this is what we'd be willing to part with. Maybe it's not exactly what you're looking for, but think about it. If you don't get a better offer, or if you sleep on it and you think this might be something you could do, okay, then great. But yeah, there's so many offers being talked about right now, especially with these quarterbacks at the top. Could we see quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, 4? Something we've never seen before. It's possible, and I wouldn't be surprised if you're the Cardinals, if they do something like they did last year, where they trade out and say it is the Vikings. Vikings go from 11 to 4. Cardinals go back to 11, but then just trade right back up, say with the Chargers at 5. And they're able to get that Marvin Harrison Jr. or whichever receiver they want, but still pick up draft capital in the process because of their maneuvering. They did it last year with Paris Johnson, an offensive tackle out of Ohio State. So I do think that the Cardinals have shown they're willing to be creative with how they move around. The Chargers are a little bit of a wild card considering, we've got a first-year general manager. Jim Harbaugh is a complete wild card in this process. He has a very different perspective on these players, having recruited a lot of them at Michigan, having coached against them or with them in college. So he brings a very different perspective to this process as well. So there's a level of unknown at 4 and 5, but I think both are more than willing to listen to offers because I think they both like to get out of there if they can.
And I think we're going to see a new precedent set for the amount you have to pay to move up to, Dane, because of the level of quarterback you could be moving up for and the fact there's going to be competing offers, right? You have 2 teams or 3 teams, even if you count the Raiders, that are really desperate to move up. So I think the price is going to be pretty exorbitant, but if you get the right quarterback, you can never pay too much, right?
It's true. And it will be because I think, we look at past offers and say, okay, well, this is what it cost for the 49ers to go get Trey Lance at number 3 overall. Or, we look at those as guidelines. But the truth is the offer is whatever the move is going to be, whatever the best offer is. And so I should take that back, actually, because if you're the Cardinals, if you have a trade offer from maybe someone they're still picking in the top 10, you might be more inclined to do that deal because you are still in range of one of those top 3 receivers. And I think that those top 3 receivers are a key point in all of this because, yeah, you want more draft capital, but the Cardinals are already set up pretty well. And so if you have a chance to stay within striking distance of one of those top 3 receivers, because I think if I'm the Cardinals, that's a priority for me. Is however it looks like, I don't care as long as I get out of that top 10 with one of these 3 receivers. That should be my goal. Even if I'm maneuvering and trading around, that's fine. As long as I'm coming away with Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Roma Dunze, to me, that should be their priority as they try to rebuild that offense. And they just need to give Kyler Murray some type of number 1 weapon. And we just happen to have 3 of those guys at the top of this draft.
Yeah, and I think that's a priority for the Giants, too, if they don't decide to go quarterback, Dane, to get one of those 3 wide receivers. If they're trying to pick up an extra pick, do you think they could risk going down to 9 to say with the Bears? Maybe the Bears decide they have one receiver they really want. They want to move up. Or is it too risky then where the Falcons could get out at 8 if they feel good about an edge rusher in the early teens? If you're the Giants, you want one of those 3 wide receivers, do you have to stay there at 6 in your opinion?
I think that if you are dead set on coming away with one of those receivers, then yeah, you have to stick and pick. It is too much of a risk because just like you set it up, if they move back to 9, it's even the 7 with the Titans. If the Titans have similar grades on Fuaga and Olufashinu and all, I wouldn't be surprising if they trade back a little bit, get those draft picks, and they still get an offensive lineman that they want, or maybe they go in a completely different direction. There's too much that could happen at 7 or 8 because I think a lot of teams, you look at the Colts at 15, the Jaguars, there's a lot of teams that would love to have one of these top 3 receivers. Who knows? We could even see a Julio Jones type of trade with the Bills going all the way up to get their next number 1 receiver. There's too many landmines that if I'm the Giants and I want one of these 3 receivers, I'm sticking and picking. As much as it'd be great to have that 2nd round pick, a 3rd round pick, that extra draft capital, whatever it may be, let's just make sure we get our guy and we're not too cute about it.
100%. And folks, Dane joined us at the Combine, so go back to that Combine episode. He did all his evaluation of the top receivers and top quarterbacks. If you want to hear it, his evaluation of the players haven't changed. Go back, take a listen to that. We're going to focus a little bit more on day 2 guys here, especially on defense. We had his colleague, former colleague, Brian Broaddus on this week. We focus a lot on the offense, day 2. We'll do day 2 defense here with Dane. But first, a reminder, the Huddle is brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants. From game day to every day, Citizens is made ready for Giant fans with insights, guidance, and solutions. Learn more at citizensbank.com. All right, Dane, corner on day 2. I did these guys last week and finalized my rankings. I got to be honest, I had a hard time stacking these guys. And I was looking back and I was trying to figure out why I was having such trouble. And one of the reasons I came up with is that none of the testing for these guys, especially on day 2 for me, really jump out at you. Like last year we had DJ Turner, right, as a day 2 guy from Michigan, but he ran a 4.38, right? This year we got a bunch of 5'11 guys that seem to run like in the low 4.5s, and that's on a fast track at Indy, or on a regular track that might be a 4.55, 4.56, right? And I'm having trouble stacking these day 2 guys, whether it's the DJ Jameses, the Drew Phillips, the Renardo Green. They're all kind of in the same group for me, and I don't know if it's going to be scheme dependent how these teams separate these guys. Ennis Rackestraw's in that same group for me too. You know, Max Melton ran a little faster, but he's in that group. Just stacking up and figuring out these day 2 cornerbacks, I think, is really tough for a position where once you get out of the elite athletes, it is hard to find really high level players at the position.
Yeah, and I think that it's funny when you talk to different teams, you get one team says this about one player and another team feels completely opposite. So everything that you're saying about it kind of just all these guys jumbled together. That's like it. A lot of teams feel the same way, where it's more of a tier system where they're just, you try to separate these guys. You find these little things, and that's why the testing matters, the interviews matter, because those little things can be the separator when their tags are touching on the board. For me, Andrew Phillips from Kentucky is one of my favorite players in the draft. I love this player. I think we can get so caught up in size and length, and just give me the good players. And I think Andrew Phillips certainly qualifies for that. He is 5'11", 190. He ran a 4.48 in the 40, not a blazing fast 40, but he is a good enough athlete. I don't see him be out athleted on tape, and he played in the SEC. But he's physical. It reminds me a lot of Roger McCreary when he was coming out of Auburn. He was an early second-round pick to the Titans, has been a solid pro so far. Probably best in the nickel, but I think he can also play outside. Not everyone's going to look at him the same, just because, again, he doesn't have that ideal size speed combination, but I think he's good enough. And that physical mindset that he plays with, the way that he wins body position, he will play through the hands of receivers. Didn't have an interception in college, and for some that's a red flag. They want somebody that's going to turn the ball over. Everybody wants that, but I think he didn't have an interception because he can't play the ball. I think it just didn't happen for him. I mean, there are times where he is in position, he's able to knock the ball away. It's just he needs to turn those into some of those balls need to turn into pickoffs, and I think he can do it. I've seen him do it on practice tape. I've seen him do it at the Senior Bowl. So Andrew Phillips, I'm a big fan of. Somewhere in round 2 is where he's going to come off the board. I don't think he makes it to round 3.
And I was happy to see you with Sanser still as your 6th corner. I didn't look at your stack until I finished mine, and that's exactly where I had him too. And I know he's just 5'9" and 180, and he's not an elite tier athlete. Very good time at 4.47. But boy, that guy just knows how to play football. And in an era, Dane, where that slot spot is so important, playing 2 ways, run and pass, and understanding how the offense is trying to influence you as one of those space players inside, I think his just mental approach to the game will really appeal to teams.
I copy and paste a lot of what I just said against with Andrew Phillips for Sainer still, because again, it doesn't match up with the elite size speed that teams are looking for, but he's just a really good football player. And I have to be really encouraged by the fact that he was a receiver at Michigan for the first 3 years, and then they moved to DB for the 2022 season, and he got better and better and better every year. And for a guy that just doesn't have a ton of experience there, he had 20 passes defended over the last 2 years, 7 interceptions. And he also was only flagged once over that span. So you consider his inexperience and the fact that he only had 1 flag and didn't give up a ton of catches. Yeah, this guy is a smart player. He just has a sixth sense for spacing and where the ball is going. He understands it. And so the coverage transitions are clean. Being a former wide receiver, he has a good sense for route breaks and what receivers are trying to do to him. You just have to be able to be okay with the lack of size. And, a lot of teams are not going to draft an undersized nickel in the first 2 rounds. but I think there will be a team that is more than okay with that, because if you have a need at the nickel position, he's plug and play, and you feel great about him as part of your defensive structure.
You watch the tape, it's hard not to like what Rackstraw puts on tape, but injury issues, ran a 4.51. Same with Kamari Lassiter. He ran up in the 4.6s. I know there's some controversy to that, but I know you've talked to a lot of people and they tell you he was in the 4.6s.
They're all in the 4.6s, yeah.
And, you know, sub 190, but his tape was good at Georgia. How do you think teams are viewing those two guys, trying to balance out some of the non-tape stuff versus the good stuff they saw on tape?
Yeah, Lassiter, it is tough because he's not particularly big. You know, he's not a big man. He's not, it's not like that's the reason for his lack of speed. Where as opposed to say like a TJ Tampa, who 6'1", 195, has some more size to him. He ran 4.58, but at least he has length to him. With Lassiter, he's 5'11 and a half. He's under 190 pounds. So not a big physical player, but he's very smart. He understands how to play the position. He's a guy that on tape, he grades as a second round player, but then the testing probably pushes him in around 3, just because, again, 4.6s, low 4.6s, it's hard to reconcile that with the player that you see on tape, because the player you see on tape is a good football player, but it's corner is a stopwatch position. It is. And for a lot of teams, that 4.6 it's a little bit of a deal breaker. So to me, he is a second round player who should go in the second round, that probably goes early third, maybe as a nickel. We'll have to see how that plays out. With Rickshaw, he is, I struggle with him because I like the mentality that he plays with. He's a dog. I mean, he wants to go out there and compete. But there are just too many things working against him, where he's a little bit undersized, 5'11", 183, has some injury stuff. So you worry about the durability. Not a great straight line athlete. Ran a 4.51 at the combine, and then at the runs again at the pro day, runs a 4.56. So couldn't even match what he did at the combine. You really like the mentality that he brings. He's patient. He's very controlled with his movements. He moves really well to mirror up and down the field. So there's a lot of things that he does well. But when you're going up against NFL level receivers, NFL level athletes, being undersized, not having a ton of ball production, only 3 passes defended this year, only 1 career interception. So there are some parts to his game that give me a little bit of pause, and why I see him as, I see him pop up in first round mocks, and I struggle with that. I don't see that type of player. But once you get into the 40s and the 50s, that's where I think, okay, I'm comfortable drafting him here, because he is missing some of the elements that I want in my corners. But above all, give me the guy that's physical. Give me the guy that has that mentality, that competitiveness. He brings that. And so that's what if I have to sell him in a war room to my, to a team, it's all about the way that the mentality that he brings to the field, the way he competes, and the way that he'll match up with NFL level receivers at the next level.
All right, 2 more guys on corners I want to touch on here, Dane. One is Renardo Green. I'm going to give my Renardo Green propaganda right now, because I have him in the second round. And it's because he plays so much press. And, so many of these guys are in off coverage, and you have to figure it out, right? He's in press all the time for Florida State, and he's sticky as hell, man. I think, and now the Giants aren't going to be in that as much this year with Wink Martindale not being here and all that. But I think Renardo Green is one of those guys you watch the tape, and you can immediately see how that guy is going to transfer to the NFL, given how he was used at Florida State, playing so much of that press man.
Yeah, and I totally get it, because he is another guy. He has the right mentality for the position, and he wants to get physical. He's wired right for the position. I think he's smart too, the way he can read receivers and understand what routes they want to run. Patient, controlled in that sense. But there are times where he will get over aggressive, and because he's only an average athlete by NFL standards for that position, his recoveries are where I worry, because if there's a receiver that's able to stem him out of phase, he really struggles to get back into phase and get back into position. So I agree with you. The things to like about him are being able to press, being able to play that sticky coverage when everything's going right. But when he gets out of position, can he recover? That's my hang up with Green. Why I have a 4th round grade on him. I I couldn't get him into my top 100 just because of the lack of recovery skills. It worries me. But I understand why some teams, they might look at it and say, okay, well, give me the guy that has the play personality. Give me the guy that, he understands what the receiver is trying to do. And so even though his recoveries are a little bit of a struggle, he's not caught out of position that many times. And we're going to bank on him being able to do that at the NFL level. So Ronaldo Green is a tough one. I know some teams that are completely out on Ronaldo Green. They view him as a late round guy, not interested. Other teams, they look at, throw on the LSU tape and what he did against those receivers and say, okay, you know what, this guy just understands how to play corner. We feel like he's going to go top 100. So Ronaldo Green's the truth probably somewhere in the middle, somewhere maybe third round, fourth round, is probably where he's going to end up going. But a lot of differing opinions from team to team on Green.
You're ready for a change. Payday comes early with Citizens, so go to that retreat. New you moves to the country. Now you're raising goats and launching a lifestyle brand. Are you ready for all that life brings?
All right, final thing on corners. Of the big guys, the TJ Tampas, the Cam Harts, the Kyrie Jacksons, Dane, how do you kind of sort through them if you're looking for a bigger outside corner real quick?
Yeah, I'll throw DeCamerion Richardson in there too. 6'2" and a quarter, 188 pounds. He thought he was going to transfer actually to Ole Miss for next season. Had a late change of heart and then decided not to go to the Senior Bowl because of that. But he's a guy that has the size, ran a 4.34, has outstanding speed. I worry about his ball tracking skills. He really struggled to find the football, especially once his back is turned to the football. But when we're talking, probably fourth, early day 3 for him, I think that he's going to be an appealing player to look at. Cam Hart's kind of in that same range for me, 6'3", 200. This is a good example of trusting the tape more so than the tag. The tag says 6'3", 200. It says 4.50. You see the length of 33-inch arms, and easy to be encouraged by that. But then you watch the tape and you see an inconsistent player. So again, I think we're seeing more fourth round for him. Same thing with Kyrie Jackson, who had an outstanding season. But okay, why did it take until his 6th year in college to play up to this level? What happened at Alabama where when he did get on the field, it was inconsistent, didn't last very long. He was suspended, goes to Oregon. He's going to be a 25-year-old rookie. So there's more question marks with Kyrie Jackson. A lot of teams doing their background and homework on him. But, if things all go in the right direction, Jackson can be an NFL starter. He has that in him. It's just a matter of consistency for the big 6'4" Oregon corner.
Giant fans love a winner. It's why they love Citizens, named a 2022 Best Bank in the U.S. by The Banker as the official bank of the Giants and sponsor of the Huddle. Citizens is made ready for fans of Big Blue. Learn more at citizensbank.com. All right, Dane, let's jump over to safety here. The Giants going to more of that split safety, cover 2, cover 4, cover 6, figure things out, matchup zone things. So you need safeties rather that can do a little bit of everything and be versatile and move up or down based on offensive formation. When do you think the sweet spot is for safeties here? Is it second round? Is it third round? And what safeties do you think kind of fit that versatile role that I just described for what the Giants would be looking for in their new defense?
I think if you want to draft that first safety off the board, then you're looking at that position in the second round. If you are comfortable with drafting, your third or fourth safety, if you got these guys all jumbled together in a similar range, then you can wait till the third round. And I think feel very confident about who's going to be there for you. For me, Jaden Hicks from Washington State is my top ranked safety this year. And I think he fits a lot of what the Giants could be looking for when you think about that versatility to play a lot of different roles. Whether that's more of a split safety role or you walk him down to the box, let him play. He can play on an island. Michael Penix didn't throw a lot of interceptions this year. One of those was against Jaden Hicks, where he was lined up mano-a-mano against the slot receiver. So he can do a lot of things where he's that intimidating presence because he is 6'2", 215 pounds, but he also has enough speed where he can do some things in coverage. So I'm a big Jaden Hicks fan. I think if you're looking at versatility and the different ways he can help, the Giants, I think, would be interested in that. Tyler Nubin, obviously, is a name I think most fans are familiar with. 6'1.5", 205 pounds. the testing wasn't great for him. I think he's a better athlete on film. Now he did have a knee injury, and maybe that plays a part into why the testing wasn't up to what a lot of our expectations were. But you want a guy that can find the football and go make a play. I mean, he's a former receiver, and you can tell he does receiver-like things at the catch point. So 13 interceptions over the last 4 years. I think that you're looking for that split safety. I mean, you look at what Minnesota did on film. You see a lot of cover two. You see quarters based. You see a lot of what the Giants will probably be looking to do this year. So Newman would be I think a natural fit. And then same thing with Cole Bishop from Utah, who my hang up with him, as much as I like his tape, he's 6'2", 206, ran outstanding time at the combine. He was in the mid 4.4s. I just wanted to see more impact level plays on film. Like he'll make good tackles. He had a pair of interceptions, but I thought he left some production on the field for a guy with his range, with his intelligence, with his smarts. I just wanted to see more impact plays. And I thought the tape, I wanted to see more of that from his tape, especially when you consider all the talent and ability that he has.
All right, let's jump down the defensive tackle here. Damon, got about 3-4 minutes left. Giants have a bunch of big bodies, including Dexter Lawrence. If they're looking for an athletic upfield 3 technique, obviously take Byron Murphy and Johnny Newton out of the equation. They're not going to be there when the Giants have a chance to take them. Who do you like to play that 3 technique role on either day 2 or maybe a little bit deeper guy on day 3? Where I know this was supposed to be a better top of the class defensive tackle group, but it seems like in the mid rounds, it's pretty thick.
Yeah, I really, on day 2, I really like these defensive tackle class. And especially if you're looking for that 3 technique, Chris Jenkins from Michigan, he has a lot of the ingredients that you're looking for to be that one gapping, go make a play, really good athlete, much different than style of defensive tackle than his dad was. So he would fit. Mike Hall Jr. from Ohio State, who is undersized a little bit, and you do question about, okay, can he hold up against the run? But he's very young. He's still just 20 years old. The disruption is outstanding, the quickness that he plays with. So I think you're banking on him continuing to develop and grow, a little bit of an investment type of pick than some of these other guys. Braden Fisk from Florida State. I see him, even some people say, maybe late first round. That would be surprising to me because he's more of a worker bee than a true impact player. But you need those guys on your defensive line. And so I think when you look at some of the impact plays that he made this year for Florida State on that defensive line, the quickness that he plays with, the violence in his hands, the motor doesn't quit. I mean, it doesn't matter against a run, against a pass, he's going to go make a play. So Fisk makes sense. But if we're looking maybe more 4th round, Mekhi Wingo from LSU, again, undersized, 6 foot, 285 pounds, but a tough guy to block. And at the end of the day, when we're talking about defensive tackles, give me the guys that hate to be blocked. And I think Mekhi Wingo fits in that category as well. So, I think once you get into day 3, it does thin out a little bit. 4th, 5th round, then we're talking more Dwayne Carter from Duke. He's there's a lot to like about him as a mid-round type of player. He's a potential fit. If you're looking for maybe more of a boom bust, invest in one of those guys in the 4th, 5th round. Leonard Taylor from Miami, 6'3.5", 305 pounds. A good athlete. If you take his 10 best plays, you look at that and you say, okay, this is a first round pick, right? The body of work doesn't say first round pick. The body of work says more day 3. But this is why you have the coaches, right? This is why you pay them all that money to coach these guys up. And if Leonard Taylor hits, if he's able to reach his full potential, he'll look like a steal after a team drafts him in the 4th or 5th round.
All right, Dane, final question. When does this thing drop off a cliff, right? We've heard all throughout this process. I talked to Jim Nagy and Eric Galko about it, how just the number of guys available to them for these all-star games even was at an all-time low because of the extra COVID year, because of NILs. And that means the back end of this draft, it's going to be the opposite next year, by the way, when there's a bajillion guys in the 6th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounds. When does this thing really fall off the cliff and teams are going to have trouble even finding people left on their boards to draft, do you think, on day 3?
I think it differs by position. Some positions will stretch more. Corner, wide receivers. There's more of those guys in this draft. But yeah, offensive tackle will fall off pretty quickly. I think defensive line as a whole. I'm working on my 7 rounder right now. Just finished it, and I found that these defensive linemen were going earlier and earlier just because everyone wants defensive line depth, every single team. And if you don't, it's one of those positions you just can't wait on. You have to go get them a little bit earlier because it's not a position that's going to wait around because every team's going to want to draft that position. So defensive line, especially, I think really both in the trenches, offensive line, defensive line, those positions, we're going to see them first round, but then second round, third round into the fourth. After we get midway through the fourth, that's where I think it's going to drop off at both sides, offensive line, defensive line. And, that to your point, it's something that won't be as much of a problem or shouldn't be as much of a problem next year with, the COVID year going away and all of that. But who knows with NIL and the transfer portal, it just feels like a whole new ball game now with the draft and how guys make their decisions about whether or not to go pro. And so it'll be a really interesting dynamic to college football as it continues to evolve and they figure things out, how it affects the draft and how scouts approach it. So a lot of things are evolving and kind of a work in progress that'll alter how these next few drafts go.
Do you want to give Giant fans a little tease on what presents you're bringing them in your 7-round mock this week?
No, so I did a few trades, but not for the Giants. I have them kind of sticking and picking. I think so that they have 3 or 6 picks, right? I believe that's what they have right now. I think
they have one every round, but they don't have one in the 7th.
Okay, right. Yep. I am going 3 offense, 3 defense, which I expected to be more defensive heavy, maybe going into it, but it just the way the board played out, it's like, oh, okay, would they really pass on this running back here? I don't think so. So they're drafting a running back in the 3rd round. I haven't taken a safety in the 2nd, and then some quality depth on day 3. So I have them going, split evenly, 50-50 offense, defense. I don't know if I'm a Giants fan, I'm happy with the way their mock ends up, but I'm sure there'll be split opinion on that, and I'm sure Giants fans will let me know about it.
Dane, always a pleasure, my friend. We appreciate the time, and good luck the rest of the way, and enjoy the draft as your year worth of work concludes, and then you get to start on 2025.
Pleasure's all mine, John. Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Dane Brugler from The Athletic. Thanks for joining us on the Giants Huddle podcast, brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants.